She fears no man, because she fears God. That alone sets her apart from the world around her. While others tremble at judgment, social pressure, or the threat of abandonment, she stands firm, not out of arrogance, but reverence. Her fear is not of what man can do to her, but of ever stepping out of alignment with the one who created her. It's not a fear rooted in punishment, but in purpose. She fears disappointing God more than being misunderstood. She'd rather walk alone in truth than be accepted in a crowd built on lies. This fear of God is not weakness. It's the root of her wisdom, her courage, her clarity. When a woman fears God, something shifts in her spirit. The approval of others loses its grip. The manipulation of men has no place. She no longer entertains relationships that cost her peace, conversations that dilute her convictions, or environments that suppress her voice. She doesn't need validation from people who don't even know who they are. Her identity is anchored in something unshakable, and that makes her dangerous, because a woman who cannot be controlled is a threat to every system built to keep her small. Most women are raised to seek safety in people, but she has learned that true safety comes from surrendering to divine guidance. She has seen the inconsistency of man, the broken promises, the empty words, the weak leadership. And instead of becoming bitter, she became better. She turned her focus away from trying to fix people, and instead allowed God to fix her. Now she walks with her head high, not because of pride, but because of peace. She is no longer tossed by opinions or blown off course by compliments or criticisms. She is rooted, and roots don't run. When a woman fears God, she doesn't need to raise her voice to be heard. Her presence alone carries weight. Her words carry truth, not because they are loud, but because they are guided. She speaks when necessary, and even her silence has power. She has no interest in proving herself to people who lack vision. She doesn't compete, compare or chase. She creates space. She moves in alignment, not performance. She doesn't need applause, only assurance from above. She has been tested. She has walked through fire and came out refined, not destroyed. She has faced betrayal, heartbreak, rejection, and confusion, but none of it made her bitter. It made her reverent. She used pain as her teacher, and God as her healer. She now sees clearly. She discerns the difference between noise and truth, between good and evil dressed in charm. She's not impressed by charisma. She's moved by character. She isn't flattered by attention. She's drawn to intention. Her fear of God makes her fearless in the face of adversity. While others shrink in storms, she stands still and listens. She knows whose voice matters. She's not desperate for direction. She already has it. She doesn't follow the crowd. She follows conviction. When the world tries to shame her into silence, she leans deeper into truth. When they mock her for being different, she remembers that every chosen soul walks a narrow path. When they try to make her feel small, she remembers that humility is not weakness. It's strength under control. This woman doesn't fear being alone because she knows she's never truly alone. God walks with her, leads her, fights for her. She's learned to discern the still small voice, even in chaos, and that discernment has become her shield. She doesn't waste time chasing what isn't hers. She doesn't beg for love, opportunities, or answers. She waits, listens, and obeys. That obedience has protected her from countless disasters the world will never know about. Her silence speaks louder than rebellion. In a world addicted to noise, to shouting, to endless commentary, her quiet presence is unsettling. It unnerves those who rely on chaos to maintain control. While others try to prove their power with loud voices and aggressive postures, she understands the deeper language, stillness. She doesn't need to shout to be heard. She doesn't need to rebel outwardly, because her strength comes from within. Her silence is not submission, it is strategy. It's a refusal to waste energy on battles that aren't hers to fight. She chooses peace, not because she is weak, but because she is wise. She knows that not everything requires her response, and that some of the greatest demonstrations of strength come through restraint. She sees through provocation. When others try to bait her into reacting, into fighting back, she remains still. She knows that some people thrive on her reaction, and by withholding it, she robs them of their power. Her silence is a boundary, a wall that protects her spirit. It's her way of saying, I see you, I understand your game, but I won't play it. She's mastered the art of staying grounded, while others are falling apart. Her silence allows her to hear the voice of God more clearly, to stay in alignment with her purpose, rather than be distracted by the opinions and noise around her. There is a presence about her that speaks without words. When she enters a room, people notice, not because she's loud, but because she carries weight. She has authority, not because she demands it, but because she embodies it. Her eyes speak clarity, her demeanor speaks calm, and her silence speaks power. She doesn't need to argue to make her point. Her life, her choices, and her peace speak on her behalf. She's not interested in being right in every conversation. She's more concerned with being aligned with truth. And when truth is on your side, you don't have to shout it. You just have to live it. She understands that rebellion often comes from insecurity. The loudest ones are often the most lost. The most defiant are often the most broken. But she is rooted. She doesn't need to rebel because she already knows who she is and who she belongs to. Her decisions are not reactions, they're revelations. Her silence comes from confidence, from knowing that not everything deserves her attention. She chooses her battles wisely, and many times, she chooses not to fight at all, because she knows that some things are beneath her calling. In moments of injustice or disrespect, her silence is not a lack of response, it's a higher response. It's a declaration that she refuses to stoop to the level of those who seek to destroy her peace. It's her way of rising above, of choosing elevation over retaliation. She has trained herself to listen before she speaks, to understand before she reacts, to observe before she engages. And in that space between offense and response, she finds power. She gains control. She chooses how to move, rather than being pushed into motion by the chaos of others. The world tries to equate loudness with leadership, but she knows better. She's seen how the loudest voices often lack depth. She's learned that true leadership requires presence, not performance. That wisdom often comes quietly, in whispers, not in roars. Her silence isn't passive, it's intentional, it's spiritual, it's a shield, a tool, a weapon in the hands of a woman who listens to God. And in that silence she hears direction, she receives clarity. She gains insight. While others talk over each other, she listens to the one voice that truly matters. She walks in obedience, not opinion. In a world that worships validation and applause, she chooses a different path. She doesn't move based on the shifting tides of popularity or public perception. She listens to a higher calling, one that doesn't always make sense to those around her. While others ask, "What will people think?" she asks, "What does God want from me?" Her life is not dictated by likes, trends, or fleeting emotions. It's anchored in something eternal, something unshakable. Obedience to her is not restrictive, it's liberating. It frees her from the exhausting chase of trying to please everyone. It removes the burden of needing constant affirmation from those who don't even know their own direction. She understands that opinions are everywhere, loud, persuasive, and often rooted in fear. But obedience requires discipline. It demands trust. It means following a path, even when it's lonely, even when it's misunderstood, even when it's mocked. She doesn't need the crowd to support her decisions, because her decisions aren't based on the crowd. She's learned that following God means walking roads that often look strange to the world. But that doesn't scare her anymore. She'd rather be misunderstood, walking in obedience, than celebrated living in disobedience. Her loyalty isn't to approval, it's to purpose. Every decision she makes flows from that obedience. Whether it's who she loves, where she works, how she speaks, or how she spends her time, it's all filtered through a higher lens. She prays before she moves, she listens before she acts, and because of that her steps are ordered, her path is protected. She may not always know where she's going, but she knows who's leading her. That confidence in divine guidance gives her a quiet assurance that no external voice can shake. She doesn't rush decisions out of pressure. She waits, even when waiting is uncomfortable. She follows promptings that others ignore, and often, what seems foolish to the world is exactly what strengthens her faith. Obedience has cost her comfort. It has cost her relationships. It has cost her status. But none of that compares to what she's gained: peace, clarity, strength, and a deep intimacy with God. She no longer fears missing out on what the world offers, because she's tasted what obedience brings. And what obedience brings cannot be replicated by ambition or applause. Her victories may be quiet, but they are undeniable. Her growth may be hidden, but it is real. She doesn't need to prove herself, because obedience is her evidence. She knows the difference between instinct and instruction. Instinct often reacts, but instruction waits. Instinct speaks out of emotion, but instruction moves with intention. Obedience trains her to pause, to listen, to act from a place of wisdom, instead of urgency. While others are led by their feelings, she is led by faith. And that faith isn't always loud, it's steady. She has learned that some doors open, not because she forces them, but because she waited long enough for the right time. And some opportunities weren't blessings, they were distractions that obedience helped her avoid. She doesn't chase influence, she carries it. Not because she tries to impress people, but because obedience makes her different. People notice that she doesn't move like everyone else. She has boundaries, not because she's controlling, but because she's convicted. She says no when others expect a yes. She walks away when others stay. She stays quiet when others speak. And all of that flows from obedience, not rebellion. It's not about being stubborn, it's about being aligned. Aligned with something greater than herself. Obedience to her isn't about rule following, it's about soul listening. And when you listen to God over people, you become untouchable in ways the world can't understand. Her strength is forged in solitude, not applause. While many seek strength in external affirmation, in crowds, attention or recognition, she found hers in the quiet places no one saw. She discovered who she truly was in the seasons when no one was clapping, when no one was watching, when no one cared. And that's where her real power was born. Not in a spotlight, but in silence. Not in public celebration, but in private surrender. She understands now that applause can be deceptive. It can inflate the ego and distract from the soul's true purpose. But solitude strips away all illusions. It forces her to face herself, to confront the parts of her identity that were built on others' expectations. In that isolation, she wasn't weakened, she was refined. She embraced the loneliness, not as punishment, but as preparation. It was in that quiet space that she heard God's voice clearly, without interference, without noise. When the world fell silent, heaven spoke louder. She began to see that solitude wasn't absence, it was presence. The presence of clarity, the presence of divine wisdom, the presence of purpose. While others were scrambling for validation from the outside, she was building resilience on the inside. And that inner fortitude became her armor. Not the kind that made her cold or distant, but the kind that made her rooted, immovable, and grounded in something deeper than emotion or image. She doesn't fear being alone, because she's met herself in the silence. She's done the work of healing, praying, reflecting, and confronting her own patterns. She knows that time alone is not wasted. It's where the foundation is built. Her decisions are now guided not by pressure, but by peace. She doesn't need constant connection to feel secure, because she has a connection that never leaves. And that confidence in divine companionship gives her a calmness that confuses those who rely on noise to feel alive. She can sit in a room with no sound, no phone, no audience, and feel whole. That is her power. That is her strength. When she finally returns to the world, she doesn't come back needing its approval. She comes back carrying something the world can't give: depth, clarity, conviction. She doesn't seek to perform, she seeks to serve. And her strength is no longer fragile, it's fortified. It doesn't waver when challenged. It doesn't crumble under criticism, because it wasn't built by applause, it was built by alignment. The woman who has survived solitude has already faced her deepest fears. She has wept without an audience, fought battles in silence, and found joy in the stillness. So now when noise comes, it doesn't sway her. When people come and go, it doesn't shake her. There's a quiet confidence about her that draws attention without demanding it. People sense that she carries something rare. It's not charisma, it's character. It's not perfection, it's presence. She doesn't need to convince anyone of her value, because her value is no longer up for negotiation. She's paid the price in time, tears, and truth. She knows that the world sees only the fruit, but God knows the root. And her root system runs deep. Deeper than most realize. That's why storms don't move her. That's why betrayal doesn't break her. That's why rejection doesn't define her. She's anchored. Solitude taught her how to stop performing and start transforming. It taught her that worth is not found in visibility, but in alignment. That growth is not always loud, it's often quiet, slow and hidden. She's not afraid to withdraw when needed, to retreat for clarity, to step back in order to step forward with purpose. She's not driven by fear of missing out, because she knows she's walking in divine timing. What's meant for her will meet her, not because she chased it, but because she became the version of herself who could carry it. She leads with discernment, not desperation. She does not move simply because something looks good, sounds right, or feels urgent. Her decisions are not driven by anxiety, scarcity, or fear of missing out. She has learned to pause before reacting, to observe before jumping, to ask deeper questions before saying yes. Her guidance doesn't come from public consensus, but from spiritual insight. She reads the energy of situations, not just the surface. She listens not only with her ears but with her spirit. Her discernment is sharp, not because she is naturally skeptical, but because she has trained herself to hear the quiet signals that most ignore. This discernment gives her the ability to lead from a place of inner authority, rather than chasing outer control. There's a difference between leading to be seen, and leading because you've been called. She knows that difference intimately. She has no need to be the loudest in the room, because she is confident in her ability to read the room. She sees through flattery, through manipulation, through performance. She can spot false intentions from a distance, and her boundaries are built not from bitterness, but from clarity. She does not engage in everything that demands her attention. She picks her battles with precision. Not every opportunity is worth her energy. Not every invitation is an assignment, and not every voice deserves access to her mind. That's what makes her dangerous. She is selective, not out of pride, but purpose. She recognizes the difference between movement and progress. The world teaches women to hustle, to stay busy, to always be doing, but she knows that discernment sometimes looks like stillness. It looks like waiting when others rush. It looks like saying no when everything screams yes. She trusts that missing a counterfeit opportunity only makes room for what's truly aligned. Desperation makes decisions out of fear of loss. Discernment makes decisions from a place of knowing she is never truly lacking. Desperation compromises. Discernment clarifies. Desperation clings. Discernment releases. She no longer acts just to feel secure. She acts when she is led, and that's a higher level of living. She leads with a presence that cannot be faked. There is calm in her voice, direction in her words, and confidence in her steps. People listen to her not because she demands it, but because she speaks with substance. She doesn't guess, she knows, and when she doesn't yet know, she waits until she does. She doesn't lead from emptiness hoping someone else will fill her up. She leads from overflow, because she's filled herself first through prayer, reflection, and truth. Her leadership isn't loud, but it's unmistakable. She doesn't try to control others. She simply controls herself. Her self-mastery makes space for others to trust her, follow her, and be guided by her without manipulation. Discernment has taught her how to filter through chaos and find clarity. She doesn't panic in storms. She doesn't overcommit in confusion. She has developed the inner muscle of spiritual perception. She senses the truth before it is obvious. She recognizes danger before it looks threatening. She sees through temptation disguised as opportunity. And she doesn't need 1,000 confirmations when she feels one clear conviction in her heart. That's how she leads: firm, but not rigid, decisive, but not controlling, grounded, but not closed off. Her discernment allows her to remain steady, even when others are anxious, because she isn't chasing anything, she's following something greater. She no longer feels the need to fix everything, or save everyone. She knows when to step in and when to step back. She trusts the timing of God more than the timeline of culture. Her leadership is not about being in charge, it's about being in alignment. She does not lead to be admired, she leads because she's been entrusted with insight, and she takes that responsibility seriously. Her discernment is her guide, her weapon, and her protection. She fears no loss when she walks with purpose. The world often teaches women to cling to relationships, to titles, to comfort zones, out of fear that letting go means being left behind. But she has learned the deeper truth: what is truly meant for her will never require begging, chasing, or compromising her values. Her relationship with loss has transformed. Where others see endings, she sees redirection. Where others see failure, she sees refinement. She doesn't measure her worth by what she keeps, but by what she's willing to release when called to something higher. That shift in perspective has made her fearless in ways most can't understand. She doesn't just endure change, she moves with it, guided by purpose rather than panic. She's not attached to appearances, to roles, or to the illusion of control. She has learned to hold things loosely, not because she doesn't care, but because she trusts. Trusts that when God says move, she will be provided for. Trusts that obedience always makes room for something greater, even if it first comes in the form of loss. She has let go of relationships that no longer matched her growth. She has stepped away from opportunities that compromised her integrity. She has walked away from comfort that dulled her spirit. Each time she let go, she didn't become weaker, she became wiser, and in that wisdom, she found power not rooted in what she had, but in who she was becoming. She doesn't flinch at rejection. She understands now that rejection is often protection. When doors close, she no longer sees it as failure. She sees it as divine editing. Her heart has been trained to bless closed doors, to trust unanswered prayers, to accept when seasons shift without warning, because she has tasted the peace that comes from release. She doesn't just walk away from what no longer serves her, she walks toward what aligns with her spirit, and that movement, that direction, is what keeps her free, not just free from others, but free from her old self, free from fear, free from desperation, free from emotional dependency on things that were never meant to last. Her strength is in knowing when to hold on, and when to let go, and that knowing doesn't come from logic alone, it comes from spiritual discernment. She's in tune with her own growth. She recognizes when something that once nurtured her now restricts her. She doesn't demonize the past, but she also doesn't live in it. She honors the chapter, but doesn't stay stuck rereading it. She turns the page with grace, not because she has it all figured out, but because she no longer needs to. Her faith allows her to move forward with questions unanswered, with plans unfinished, with endings unresolved. She walks by vision, not by sight. Others may call her cold for walking away, but it's not coldness, it's clarity. She no longer confuses peacekeeping with people-pleasing. She's not afraid of disappointing others, if it means staying true to herself. She refuses to shrink to be digestible, to dim her light to keep others comfortable. She has found her identity, outside of other people's opinions, and that identity gives her the courage to lose what isn't aligned. Her sense of self is no longer tangled in the temporary. She is grounded in the eternal. Her values don't shift based on who enters or exits her life. Her purpose doesn't dissolve when plans fall apart. She is unshaken because she was never anchored in outcomes. She was anchored in obedience. The woman who fears no loss cannot be manipulated. She cannot be controlled by threats, silenced by guilt, or trapped by scarcity. She is dangerous because she has mastered the art of letting go without losing herself, and that's what makes her unstoppable. While others spend their lives trying to hold on to everything, she rises by releasing. She climbs higher because she carries less. She loves deeply, but she loves freely. She gives fully, but she gives wisely. And she walks forward, not because she has no fear, but because her fear no longer leads her. Purpose does.